Raven Tale. We are doing a special interview today with Jeff Crawford on his new book, Field of Ghosts. And it's right onto the market right now. You can get out there and buy it, but we want to learn a little bit more from the author what it's about. Jeff, thank you for joining us again.
Hey, it's always a treat and a pleasure to sit and talk with you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure entirely. So, with Field of Ghosts, I started going into this book and thinking, okay, this is another typical Southern thing with battlefields, ghosts, different things like that. Because, you know, everybody that owns a house in the South has at least a dozen ghosts living in it. So, uh, seems very common that way. But then as we start getting into this, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. What can you tell us about it that doesn't give everything away?
Fields of Ghost is a is a story that kept getting more complex and more sinister the further I wrote into it. And I didn't mean for it to be that way when I started. I had an idea, and then it kept growing, sort of like the evil that's in this book. It just kept growing and evolving. And what had started out as a charitable act in the Civil War became something very dark and sinister and
Listed.
bastardized. It's it, it 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 catches everybody by surprise when you find out what it is that's going on, and maybe even more by surprise at how it comes to an end, at least for the two main characters in this book. Um, we don't know that the evil ever does quite end, but I take that back. We don't know if it even ends for the main characters. There's a lot of room for the reader to make up their own minds in this book, and I like reading books like that, and I like writing books like that. I don't like to spoon feed everything.
This definitely just going through this has twists, turns, and yeah, it keeps getting darker and more twisted as you go on things. And
It does. And I can say this about the book, or I'll try to, without giving the plot away. Fields of Ghosts, the title, is not meant to misrepresent anything, but it's a different way of looking at things. In the South, especially the rural South, where I've always lived, every community has what they call the community clubhouse, and it's the center of the community activities. Whether you have wedding receptions there, or memorial services after a funeral, or you go every 2 years to vote there, the community clubhouse is the center of the community. And in this one, like many other ones, there are photographs on the wall over the generations of families and that lived in the community. But in the back of these photographs, as the main character starts noticing, there are images of people that you can't see details on. You know they're there, but they're not there enough to be highlighted. There's no specificity, and it intrigues this person, Jennifer, enough to where she starts asking and finding out more and more about these photographs of these people that are there but are not there. They're almost like they were ashamed of these people. Yeah, you can be in the picture, but not up front with us in our starch shirts and pressed overalls. You have to be in the back. So that's where the Fields of Ghosts came from. It was all of these people that are there but not there.
looked
So it's
over
not
or
about
ignored, or yeah, just generally
yeah,
not put into the categories with everybody else. Yeah.
right. They were there, but they were lower on the ladder. So it's not, Casper and Woo Ghost. It's almost like they're just images. They existed, but they didn't exist. So that's where the title came from.
very good that way. Because yeah, this gets evocative. I was thinking, okay, just ghost story, but yeah, this has nothing to do with ghosts and is legitimately a solid horror story that gets into it. The deeper you get into it, the uglier it gets, and that's was really cool going through that. And it starts
Yeah,
the way every good horror story should, with people doing normal things.
correct. This couple had some issues in their life, in their marriage life, and um, the characters, Rob and Jennifer. Um, Rob knew he was a good old boy, but uh, he was playing outside of his league with Jennifer. He had gotten lucky, gotten married to her, fell in love with her in high school, but he knew he was going to have to work 3 times harder than she did because she was the it girl. So when things weren't going wonderful, he takes it on himself to try to fix things, and they go away for the weekend just to talk and hold hands and patch up what needs patching. And then she drops a bomb on him, and he reacts badly. And as a result, they end up getting lost because he can't concentrate. He doesn't know where he's driving. He's just barreling. He's boring a hole through the wind to get somewhere, and he gets lost. And then the car breaks down,
A
and they're in the
darn
middle
wrong
of,
turn, yeah.
yeah, yeah, they all took wrong turns on that trip. Um, and So here they are in this situation where the only two people they know are each other, and they don't like each other. And it's a bad place to start. And but a Samaritan comes by and says, "Hey, let me give you a hand." A fine old Southern gentleman who was a widower and just looking to try to do a nice deed. So we think. And that's sort of the beginning. After it sort of takes off on a slow burn for about 500 pages after that.
Slow burn. By the time you get to the end, there isn't much left to burn.
No, no, it's gotten pretty dark and pretty unsettling, the whole thing. And this poor couple is forced to accept, um supposed to accept this community's standard of living. And unfortunately, Rob can see it. He can see how it would work. He doesn't necessarily buy into it, but he understands it. Jennifer never does. So
Mhm.
there's always the, okay, Rob, whose side are you on? Mine, ours, or theirs? Are we in this together? Are we a team? And finally, the crack in the security comes, and they see a way out. And that leads to uh, maybe the biggest decision that either one of them will ever have to make. And it's not an easy decision, and it's not a light one. This is a heavy, dark decision they're going to have to make just to try to find some sense of reality again. And the characters that you meet all through this book, um, Rob can bond with, he can understand. They serve to only infuriate Jennifer more and more and more. Um, so you never quite get back to the happy couple that they want to be, and the community is not sure about them, where their place in it's going to be. It's a complicated thing,
Mhm.
but it's an interesting thing to me. I thought it helped. Here's the thing: I don't care what you're writing, horrors, suspense, romance, westerns. It doesn't matter. If the book doesn't hold the writer's attention, he can't hold the reader's attention. I wrote on this book about 2 hours a day for 18 months. So it held my attention. And I don't spend 18 months writing a book. I can get done faster than that. But this one held my attention long enough to work on it a year and a half every day.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating story. I would say that it'd make a great movie, but I don't think I'd ever really want to watch it.
I'm not sure I would either. I really wouldn't.
One of those you walk away from changed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, people think horror is subjective. Horror can be everything from for me, it's sitting through the movie Grease. That's horror for me. But for other people, it's slashes and screams and hatchets. But in this book, the horror is the fact that it could actually happen
Hmm.
without a lot of problems. It could actually occur. The same way that The Stand by Stephen King was so terrific because it could have actually happened. It wasn't so far out that okay, this is a book or a movie. Wait a minute, this could actually take
True in the
place.
last 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. This is that to me that was the scariest part of it is, a little bit of tweaking in our community and this could happen. And that's bothersome.
So, what occurred to make this fall into your head?
Um the original idea for it was a Civil War story of a Union officer finding a group of people that needed help badly in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. And I said, okay, who would need the help the most? So I started bouncing. These people would. Okay, he helps them. What happens then? And the more I thought about it, the more I said, okay, what became of that group 165 years later? That's how we get to this. But it all started with just um, a fine young man from Nashua that was down doing things that he didn't like doing. He didn't like killing. He didn't like the whole idea of it. He did the war because he thought it was right, but he didn't like what he had to do in the war. And because of what he found, he was able to atone and redeem himself. And he decided to make it his life's work. When the war was over, he didn't go home. He brought his family to him and they kept doing the work.
Indeed.
But he just didn't know that it was going to evolve into something so horrific.
Yeah, you had a beautiful redemption arc thing of a kind gesture, a good act on somebody's part, and it completely is not that when it eventually evolves.
Right, right. It was, it ended up what he had started ended up being worse than anything he had ever done before. So it came back to bite him, even though he did everything with the best of intentions. And that made for a really interesting dynamic when you study that part of it. And because it was set part of this book, not a lot of it, 3 or 4 chapters, was set in the Civil War. I was able to put some Civil War stories in there that were true.
Mhm.
Um, a couple that not very many people know about because they occurred within family members that I had that had been passed down through the generations. I knew those stories, even though nobody else does, and that made it a lot of fun to get to tell stories that I'd heard since I was 4 years old. Um, so there's a list about as long as my arm of things about this book that I find interesting. Um, and that's always good when a writer can do that because hopefully half of those will be interesting to whoever's reading it.
This is one of those books that it is just perfectly set up for going into a sequel, but at the same time, you do not ever want to have that happen.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I do not want to get back in bed with these people. I really don't. I hope this book sells 1 million copies and everybody that reads it loves it. But
Yeah.
don't ask for part two.
And the way that it ends is perfect, and it doesn't need to go to part two. Just leave it where you finished it and it's perfect.
I actually think if I had tried to answer the questions at the end of this book, it would have probably ruined it because I'm only going to answer it the way that half the people want it to be answered. And I don't want to disappoint anybody. This way, everybody that picks this up and gets to the last page can make up their own mind.
And they sit back and they question everything leading up to there and they rethink everything. And it's exactly what you're supposed to get in a good book.
Oh yeah. And I made a lot of people mad. The test balloons that read this as I was writing it, they got to the end and said, you can't end the book this way. Well, yeah, I can. No, you can't. I know what happened. I said, okay, it's great. Am I right? And I said, I don't know. I don't know about that. But I said, if you're happy, we're gonna go with that. And it made people mad. Um, but that's okay. I mad or happy or elated or euphoric, any of those are just other words for emotionally invested.
Yeah, they got
And
it.
that's all I'm looking for.
And you have quite the journey for anybody that gets emotionally attached to this.
Yeah. Oh God Almighty! If they're go take a ride on this one, and they there's going to be characters that they just really like, and there's going to be characters that they cannot stand, and those are the fun ones. Those are when you can make a person so physically appealing that, but you hate them so badly because of what's on the inside. That is so much fun to write. I mean, it really is.
So, being that I've just said that you shouldn't have a sequel for this, what do you have in the works next for us?
That's fun. That's fun.
2 years on this.
The the last time you and I talked, we were talking about doing something special for book 30.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an idea 3 years ago to write a book. And I had started it. I got a little ways into it. And Harvey Wood reached out to me while I was in the middle of all this. And he said, can you write a horror story? I said, yeah. So we talked a little bit back and forth. Next thing you know, I knew I was writing a brand new book that I was going to submit to Raventail. Didn't know who Raventail was, just knew who Harvey was. So I sort of forgot about what I was writing and started something brand new. And that was in June of 21. So now I'm going back and picking up what I had started. And that's going to be my book 30 and 31. A very unsettling dystopian shadow government situation.
So the
Where
daily news is what you're saying.
oh yeah, I didn't even go back and look at my old notes. I just started from scratch with and I think that's a good thing. I think it's going to start out better than the original one did. And I'm about 2 weeks away from finishing book 1, which will be number 30. We're starting to meet to talk about this next week, but it's coming along very well. Um, it's going to be a very bleak book for one character, very bleak, and mainly because of the confusion that I've put this man in. He doesn't have any idea what's happening to him and why. And the ones that are pulling the strings, you don't know much about them, except that they're there and they're doing their job the best they can. But there's only about 100 people in the entire United States that know that this program is in place. And some of the things you'll find out about the program will scare the hell out of you. They'll shock and confuse you and make you wonder. It's another one of those that, hey, this might be going on and we don't even know about it. And that's the kind of book I've always wanted to write. and I know you and I have talked about this before. I am taking the inspiration directly from the Gunslinger series, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. Um, it has inspired me to do certain things in this book in a certain way, and that's what we're writing. So, if he happens to listen to this interview, get in touch with me. I'm not stealing from you, but I am being inspired by you, Steve. So reach out and we'll talk.
And that would be awesome. We'd love to get that going together as a co-write.
Ooh, wouldn't that be fun?
I think
and
everyone would
and
want to get
and,
on
and
board with that one.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you. We'll go back to Fields of Ghosts for just a second. And I don't know if I ever told you this. Um, I was talking with a friend of mine who does interviews and whatnot, knows every writer in the country. And when Fields of Ghosts was getting ready to come out, and I said, we're going to make a big push for it because Nick and I and a couple of people think it's a really good book. And she says, you need to contact Cemetery Dance Magazine and have them review it. She said it's the number one magazine in the world for horror and fantasy books. And I said, yeah, I'll just call them up tomorrow and say, review my book. I'm sure they'll jump right on that. And she says, no, they will. She says, you know the owner. I said, your buddy's with him. I said, who's the owner? And she told me his name. And I said, well, yeah, I know him. I said, I didn't know he owned it. I said, I thought he was just, a contributing editor or something. She said, no, it's his baby. He owns it. She said, he's also Stephen King's writing partner. And I said, well, so I sent him an email and he says, as soon as the print copies are available, send me a couple of review copies and any press releases. He said, we'll put it in front of the right people. So Fields of Ghost, if I can figure out how to do, yeah, the Fields of Ghost is actually going to be reviewed, I think, in the next edition of Cemetery Dance Magazine, which is, to me, that's the same as winning American Idol. That's the golden ticket. And I'm extremely excited about that. I've got book signings already lined up to do this book over the next couple, 3 weeks. And there's actually a couple of television shows, news shows, and television shows that I'm waiting to hear back from that are talking about doing features on this book. So this
Cool.
is a huge, huge thing for me. This book is.
Absolutely. Happy to have you soar as high as you can with this. Definitely.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys it as much as I think they can. It's that kind of a good book.
Outstanding. So it's Fields of Ghosts, currently available on Amazon. What else do we need to know for finding it?
You can find it. I don't know. You can find me on through Raventail. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Um, any of those will have links to Fields of Ghosts. You can go straight to it. Um, it is. It's one of the, well, out of 30 books, I'm writing the 30th one now. I would say it's in my top 3 favorite of all time that I've done. And I've liked everything I've written, but I really like Fields of Ghost. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And if you like meaty reads, you know, where the current thinking is 80,000 words is a big novel, this is 137. I mean, you go get your money's worth. Um, when you're done, you can stick it under that table that's got a leg too short and it's going to sit fine for you. It's you can see this book everywhere. And I really, really hope somebody will give it a chance and see it for what it is and try to enjoy it, because that's the reason I wrote it.
Outstanding. Again, it's a definitely twist turns everywhere and it is enjoyable to get through. So thank you for coming out there and sharing the story of everyone wherever you figured it out from.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And I appreciate the time to talk about it. And I love talking with you about Westerns, but I love talking about horrors too.
Oh,
It's
we're hitting you right at home here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, and shoot, maybe one day me and you'll put on the soft lights and we'll talk about two or three romance books that I've written.
It's certainly possible. I seem to get through all of them here. Yes, I haven't done a romance one yet, but yeah, I'll get a different shirt for that and look all pretty for it.
You do that.
Well, Jeff, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time to promo this. And folks, go out and buy Fields of Ghosts.
Yes, sir. And thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, Kev. It's good, great talking with you.